Good evening, everybody. I'm Austri Bailey, Council President. I'm sitting in for Mayor Conley, who is on a well-deserved vacation. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please stay standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment now for all of us to have a moment of silence in remembrance of the lives lost in Charleston, South Carolina. The sister church, AME Bethel here in Madison, did have a service, but I think it's time for all of us to remember and come together as a community. Thank you. Okay. First order of business is the oath of office for volunteer firefighter James Delgreco. So I'd like the chief to come up, James to come up, and anybody else connected with the oath. James? I think you come over here.
It's like a wedding.
We didn't have a dress rehearsal. So you're going to repeat after me. I, James Delgreco.
Hand on the Bible.
Oh, yes, please put your hand. Thank you. I, James Delgreco, do solemnly swear.
I, James Delgreco, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully.
That I will faithfully.
Impartially.
Impartially.
And justly perform.
And justly perform.
All the duties of volunteer firefighter.
All the duties of volunteer firefighter.
Madison Hose Company Number 1.
Madison Hose Company.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of
I further solemnly swear.
I further solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
And the Constitution.
And that I will bear true faith.
And that I will
and allegiance.
And allegiance.
To the same.
To the same.
And to the governments.
And to the governments.
Established in the United States and in this state.
Established in the United States.
Authority of the people.
Under the authority.
Help me God.
So help me God.
Great. Congratulations. Welcome to the Madison Volunteer Fire Department. Okay, that was, we'll need to move resolution R-176, confirming the membership of James Delgreco.
I'll move it.
Okay, in a second. Thank you. Do we need a voice
Resolution 176, 2015, resolution of the Borough of Madison confirming membership of James Delgreco in the Madison Hose Company Number 1.
Second.
Thank you. And could we just have a vote of approval by voice? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it's official. Thank you very much. We're going to have reports from committees. I'll start because I have a report from the library, which also encompasses the senior citizen report that I was going to read, and then we'll go through the rest. The Madison Public Library invites local residents to participate in the summer reading program, as well as the many programs scheduled for all ages. The extensive programming lineup is made possible through the generosity of the Friends of the Library. Last Saturday was the kickoff celebration for the summer reading program for children, and the theme is Every Hero Has a Story. So far, over 250 children have registered to participate. Upcoming programs include Busy Builders, Art for Tots, Miss Carol Robotici, Robot Heroes to the Rescue, and Green Meadows Farms Petting Zoo. Very interesting words here. The teens, grades 6 through 12, are invited to participate in their special reading program using the theme Unmasked. Escape the Ordinary is the theme for the adult reading program. For each book read or listened to, the reader has a chance to win a gift certificate to a local business. A special feature will be Escape the Ordinary reading groups scheduled for Wednesdays in July from noon to 1 o'clock p.m. Short excerpts from a different and maybe new-to-you genre will be the program for each week. The summer seminars, co-sponsored by the Madison Senior Center, will run on Monday afternoons and Thursday mornings from July 6th through August 6th. This diverse program ranges in topics from the Supreme Court, is America's global power diminishing, the history of diners in New Jersey, and a Broadway baritone. There will also be 2 mini courses, Go for Baroque Music and the Middle East in the Millennium, Shifting Cultural Landscapes, sponsored by the Friends of the Library and Drew University. Registration information is available at www.drewminicourses.org. Thank you. And then for the police department, since Mr. Catalanello is not here, actually it's for the fire department, he's public safety. All of the fire department's ground ladders were recently tested and recertified. Annual testing of ground ladders are required by NFPA. On Wednesday, May 13th, the fire department conducted a confined space drill at our headquarters with Cedar Knolls and Morristown fire departments. This is an annual requirement for our confined space rescue team. On Monday, May 18th, a home on Green Avenue that was slated for demolition was offered to the fire department for training prior to it being torn down. Firefighters were able to practice search and rescue, hose line advancements, and ventilation techniques. Theatrical smoke was used to simulate a smoke condition within the structure. This year, the fire department will be marching in the Florham Park 4th of July parade, which starts at 9:30 a.m. in Florham Park. And from the Downtown Development Commission, Madison Farmers Market opened Thursday, June 4th, in its new location on Central Avenue between Main Street and Cook Avenue. The opening was a great success, and the DDC plans to build on that every week with new programming. The market will run every Thursday until October 15th. The hours will be from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Sidewalk sounds at the Madison Farmers Market will feature live music from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. every week. This Thursday will feature Al Gold and Tom Rice. The Museum of Early Trades and Crafts also has a Friday night concert series. It will be opening this Friday, June 26th, with a performance by Rosewood at 6 p.m. on the museum lawn. Join the museum for a picnic, relax, and enjoy the great music. The DDC, Madison Alliance for Cultural Arts Sidewalk Gallery banners are up in town. There are many beautiful works of art. Please be sure to go downtown and look at them, check them out. And the pieces will be auctioned to the highest bidder at the gala on Saturday, October 24th. And Bottle Hill Day is around the corner. Applications are now available on the DDC's webpage, rosenet.org. And it will be held Saturday, October 8th. So could we have a report from utilities?
Thank you. This is a report from the electric department. In this past 2 weeks, they've installed new poles on Lee Avenue in Hamilton. They constructed new 3-phase bank transformers at 39 Green Village Road, which is doing very well with the building. Completed pole transfers on Woodland Road. They installed anchors and down guys at Madison Plaza, and they trenched and installed new conduit on Nordling Lane. You may see a contractor going through town because they've begun the 2015 line clearance. Because we are Tree City, USA, those trees are really growing all the time. So there's a lot of line clearance that has to be done. From the Water Department, this is a really busy department. Some of the I don't think that people understand what actually goes on at the Water Department with just a few guys at this point, but they've had 90 requests for locating and marking underground utilities for homeowners, contractors, and other utilities. And they've been doing a lot of mark-out utilities on Ridgedale from Burnett to Central Avenue, requested by PSE&G, who has been working very diligently on that road. And they've had requests for every time a new tree is planted, they have to go out and locate the utilities. A newly constructed house needs to be taken care of. Curb boxes, either replaced or repaired for inside plumbing work that's done. One of the really important things they're doing right now is all the hydrant flushing at Drew University is still ongoing. And they've been working to make sure that the emergency generators were run and tested at the Madison Water, and the preventive maintenance contractor, EMR Power Systems, are all ready in the event of any type of storms. Fire hydrants in need of painting have been painted and color-coded according to the gallons per minute flow, which is very interesting. So sometimes you see a green hydrant or a red hydrant, and that is according to how many gallons per minute it flows. One of the other things that they're doing is that all the meters all of the hydrants have to be tested, and they'll probably be changed within this year. The Utility Advisory Committee met this past week at the Water Department, and our acting foreman, Tom Diviaz, did a great presentation on how actually water is we get our water, where it comes from, how it flows, where the wells are. It was very interesting. And then we got a lot of great information from that. And after that, we toured the well A, which is down at the DPW garage. And Tom did a spectacular job. He's got 30 years experience, so he knows everything there is about water here. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Finance and Borough Clerk, Mr. Landrigan.
Absolutely. Okay. The 2014 audit has been issued and reviewed by the Audit Committee. There were no major issues found. We had 44 tax appeals heard recently by the Morris County Board of Taxation. 34 cases were won outright with no change in valuation, and 10 cases were settled for a total reduction in assessed value of $1.5 million. Applying the current year's tax rate, this has an applied refund of about $27,000. We currently have over $450,000 in a reserve fund for tax appeals. The MRC note is due to be rolled over this August. We don't have sufficient funds on hand from the MAF to meet this obligation, so at this time we'll need to advance money from the Open Space Trust Fund to meet that obligation. I'm also happy to announce that the Green Acres has approved an additional grant of $500,000 to further reduce the land acquisition debt for the MRC project. Many thanks to Assemblyman John McKeon, Assemblywoman Myla Jacey, and Senator Richard Cody for assistance in getting this grant. And finally, the KRE project for the redevelopment of the Green Village Road school site was unanimously approved by the Planning Board. They also made their second deposit payment of $1 million, which was turned over to the Board of Education. The Board of Education has now received $2 million through the borough's efforts and will be receiving an additional $10 million before the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wolkowitz, Health.
Thank you. The Health Department would like to point out two illnesses that would be related to travel for people living in Madison. One of them is MERS, and that's the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, which was identified in South Korea, where the first laboratory-confirmed case appeared on May 20th. As of the 16th of June, there have now been 153 cases. This is a viral respiratory illness with symptoms that are usual for that type of illness: fever, cough, and shortness of breath. what to keep in mind. Obviously, it's not a problem if you go almost anywhere in the world except South Korea. So, and even there, it's been largely restricted to health workers in facilities where people have gone for treatment for MERS. But nevertheless, it's a commonsensical thing to avoid it. Wash your hands often, don't touch your eyes, nose, mouth, etc., much like what you hear when people tell you what to do to avoid getting the flu. The second illness, I feel like I'm taking the edge off of everyone's summer, but I was asked to do this. The second illness is the norovirus, which you probably know is unfortunately associated with cruise ships, and it's transmitted typically through food and the inadequate handling of food. So the health department would like you to know that in Madison, several times a year, they offer and in many cases insist upon instruction of food handlers in the borough. So it's not as if it's something for us to worry about here, but on the other hand, particularly in the case of cruise ships, you might want to pay some attention, again, to personal hygiene to avoid, certainly to avoid contact, but personal hygiene to avoid getting sick. And then I have one personal note for the health department. Flo Rice, who's been an employee of the health department, is a nurse for the last approximately 20 years, is retiring. Flo is a very accomplished person. She has taught in several universities throughout this state. She has written extensively on topics of interest and pertaining to her chosen profession. And although I've only gotten to know her recently, I can say I will miss her. She's a delightful person, and if you know her, please give her a call, send her a note, wish her the best. She deserves it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Council President. Public Works, the sewer department is cleaning the sanitary sewer lines 5 days a week and also performing sewer basin repairs. Our engineering department, the roads, the borough's mill and overlay contractor, Tilcon, has completed work on Woodland Road near the Chatham Township border last week and will be working on repaving the entire length of Noe Ave next week. For the library, after rejecting all the rebids earlier this year because all responses were above the amended budget amount, the borough entered into negotiations with several of the bidders. As a result, a recommendation for an award that is within the budget is included on tonight's agenda. We hope to be able to complete that work this fall. And finally, for the sewers, the 2015 sewer mainline construction bid was publicly opened on June 11th, and award recommendation is also scheduled for this evening. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We're going to go back to item number 8, minutes for approval. I took this out of order. Could we have a motion for the executive minutes of May 27th, 2015?
So
I'll move them.
Second.
Okay. We'll have a roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Miss Bailey?
Yes?
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe? Oh,
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan, I apologize.
Yes.
That's okay.
My-
No problem.
I've crossed out the wrong miss. Let me try that again.
Don't worry.
Okay. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Let's
think
do the
everybody
regular.
voted, right? Okay.
Yes, correct.
Then we're good.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do, have a motion for the regular minutes of May 27th, 2015. That was just a dress rehearsal anyway.
Yes.
I'll move them.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Miss Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Do we have any communications and petitions?
We have received two, an email dated June 10th from Ken Ware of Anthony Drive inviting the mayor and council to the June 15th Mayor's Trophy game versus the Chathams, and an email dated June 17th from Natalie Mazaretz of Avon Drive asking council to approve the withdrawal of the Civic Center redevelopment.
Is the Ken Ware one July 15th?
Oh, it was last week.
It was last week, okay, thank you. So we won? All right, good.
Right. That's
Okay,
what we've
thank you.
received since the last meeting.
Okay, we are going to have invitation for discussion at this time.
Have me read.
Yes.
Right.
So Mayor Conley has made a statement that he would like our attorney to read into the record. So we'll start with that because there may be some discussion after the statement is read. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm reading this on behalf of Mayor Connolly. To the council and residents of Madison, I apologize for not being able to be here with you tonight. I am on a long-planned family vacation out of state with inflexible travel options. Madison has a rich history of affordable housing. One could say it started a century ago with the rose growers and millionaires building homes for those who worked the greenhouses in the estates. This led to the first wave of immigration, establishing Madison as a community that embraces diversity. When World War II came to an end, Madison again stepped forward, creating housing for the returning veterans on what is now the Lucy D. Anthony Ball Fields. In 1970, Madison established the Housing Authority to address the challenge of providing affordable housing for residents. This was 5 years before the New Jersey Supreme Court mandated affordable housing through what became known as the Mount Laurel decision. We are only one of 3 towns out of 39 towns in Morris County to even have a housing authority. In the decades that followed, Madison became a model for communities looking for examples of successful affordable housing projects. Madison used a mixture of methods to meet the need, from the scattered site projects on Lewanika and Belmont to the 80-unit Rexford Tucker Senior Housing on Chateau Thierry. Very often, a new project would not only provide the much-needed housing, but would greatly improve a neighborhood. A few examples. The recent partnership with Habitat for Humanity, converting a contaminated former paving contractor site on Strickland to 3 for-purchase affordable homes. 2 projects on Elm Street, one at the corner of Park Avenue that removed a building that was overtaken by cats, and the other replacing a rundown residence that had been cited for allowing overcrowding and dangerous conditions to exist. Madison has a proud history in the world of housing. Of course, this doesn't mean we sit on our history. We must look to the future and how do we meet our moral and legal obligations to provide affordable housing. In the current climate, there are 2 major challenges we face in the world of affordable housing. One is the governor's decision to let the courts, not the Council on Affordable Housing, guide the path to expand affordable housing. The other is that affordable housing projects face the same challenge we all face in northern New Jersey, the high cost of land. What worked in the past may not work in the future. As this elected body, mayor and council, took on the challenge, it was the Madison history of housing innovation that drove the unanimous support for the combined housing and civic center project on Walnut Street. This project would have provided 40 of the 88 units of our affordable housing obligation, along with the new civic center. Because the site was located near public transportation, we are also eligible for extra housing credits, reducing our total remaining obligation to 35 additional affordable housing units under the proposed third-round COA rules. The plaintiffs in the recent New Jersey Supreme Court landmark case, however, maintain that Madison's affordable housing obligation is 1,000 units, not 88. It would have replaced a building that was obsolete when Madison acquired it. Yes, an elevator was added just a few years ago, but that work didn't come close to dealing with the poor layout of the floors it serves and didn't even touch issues with the front of the building. Adding to the housing challenge is the looming court filing deadline of July 8th. As you may know, the New Jersey Supreme Court has given towns until July 8th to file their challenge dealing with affordable housing. In the current political world of kick the can down the road, I commend this council for taking on the challenge by giving full support to this project. Last Monday, we heard many residents' concerns about this project. Some could have been addressed through better research and education. Some would have been covered through the approval process, except for one issue. Why is this moving so fast? That last question has brought me to where I am now, asking the council to rescind the approval of the 40-unit affordable housing project and the rehabilitation of the Civic Center. We need to be concerned about what may happen over the next few months related to our housing obligation and the specter of large for-profit builders imposing their housing projects on Madison. But experience has shown us that good long-range planning cannot occur under the pressure of short-term deadlines. In addition to asking you to rescind Resolution 200-2015, the Madison Borough Council will rescind the approval of the Civic Center redevelopment project, which is Resolution 200-2015 this evening. I will also be requesting the following. 1, that the Planning Board continue to work in earnest on incorporating an affordable housing element in our master plan. 2, to have our attorneys file with the New Jersey Superior Court a declaratory judgment action incorporating our strong history with affordable housing and our commitment to future housing with inclusionary housing while working on a plan to create 88 housing units based on the third round COA certification process. And 3, because the Council and Planning Board are the deliberative bodies responsible for affordable housing in Madison, I will be announcing in the upcoming weeks that representatives from both the Council and Planning Board will work with our planner, administration, and others to formulate a comprehensive affordable housing strategy for Madison. Again, I want to thank the Council for fully supporting what would have been considered a greater good project. This is not a rebuttal of the work we were trying to do, but a recognition that we are not considered one of the top 25 small towns to live by accident. We attain that lofty ranking through strong and thorough planning, and that is the course we intend to pursue. Thank you for listening to me from afar. Bob Connolly, Mayor of the Borough of Madison.
Okay, so we are now inviting the public for discussion. There will be another time, that will be on agenda or resolutions, and there will be another time later in the meeting for discussion on any other subject. If you choose to speak, you come up to the microphone, you state your name and address for the record, and please also write your name and address for the record. Is there anyone tonight who would like to speak? Mr. Cerciello.
I know you guys missed me, right?
We certainly did. And you know the rule about trying to stick to 3 minutes, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, I've been watching a lot of meetings on television, and if the people that are going to talk, they got to talk into the mic because 60% of the time you can't understand what they're saying. And also, the council and the Ray and Matt, you guys got to start talking into the mic so we can hear what you're saying. Because a lot of times, like I said, you can't understand one word. I want to speak on Ordinance 42. Ridgedale Avenue.
Is there a hearing for that?
There's going to be a hearing for
So
that.
there's going to be a public hearing on that ordinance after this. This is a public comment on the agenda resolutions. So you'll have an opportunity, and we'd ask that you hold back on speaking on Ordinance 42 so that when we actually call up the ordinance for a hearing, we'll have a public hearing on that ordinance specifically when you can talk and address the council this evening.
Because I only got 3 minutes, maybe I want these 3 minutes for something, then I want to speak 3 minutes more.
Well,
So-
it's very clear here, Sam, for discussion purposes, we are discussing the agenda items and the resolutions, and ordinances will come under a hearing. And as far as I know, we don't have a rule regarding how long you speak for the ordinance. So maybe we'll give you some more time.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, Sharon Harris, 114 Rosedale Avenue. Just a comment. I'm not against affordable housing in Madison, just the allocation of it throughout town, and was wondering if the board or the town has looked at other options in town. And I know space is limited, but I did inquire at the last meeting about the use of the public library as a viable space for affordable housing. And looking at the resolutions coming up, it looks like we are spending quite a bit of money in repairs for the library in the coming years, and looking at that as a factor into offsetting the costs for revamping the library and putting the public housing in that space rather than just addressing one issue at the library and then building affordable housing in another location. Just wondering what the pros and cons were looked at, or if it was looked at regarding the use of Madison-owned space that we have in town available. Thank you.
Okay. We'll have Mr. Cody respond. I mean, I can respond as from the planning board is that we have definitely looking at absolutely every zone in Madison and commercial sites and where we can do an overlay for housing. But that's where we get only just one unit for every 5 units built. So it's a very difficult process to get 88 units. So I'll let Mr. Cody also respond.
Unfortunately, the library has a situation that it has asbestos in its ceilings, and that's been removed in a piecemeal fashion, and that's why what you see tonight is a portion of the building. If it was scheduled to be demolished, the entire building would have to be remediated, and when we explored that option, it would be a multi-million-dollar asbestos abatement removal process before the demolition could take place. So it was not cost-effective to utilize the library. Plus, we don't have an alternate site for the library to go to when it's being used for housing. We don't have an alternate location to relocate the library facilities, even if we had the money to abate the asbestos. I don't want to scare people. It's not dangerous. It's not friable. It's dangerous when it would be imploded or demolished. In this current situation, it's not dangerous.
Just another comment. I mean, we're going to incorporate the current Board of Health and Senior Center into the Civic Center housing. Couldn't the library be incorporated into the low-income housing if it was used at that location?
The Civic Center that was proposed that's not going to appear to proceed was 10,000 square feet, which is less than the current space without the library present, and it needs to accommodate the Board of Health, the Senior Center, the Adult School of the Chatham's Madison and Florham Park, Project Community Pride, and Playwrights Theater. That's a lot of programs to shoehorn into 10,000 square feet plus a library.
No. The library, she intended to be at the current site and build above it.
As you proposed for the Civic Center site.
The issue is still the issue is with the abatement of the asbestos, yes.
So it puts that location at a standstill for any kind of project because of the abatement issues.
Any new kind of project, I mean, basically what we're doing is a piecemeal fashion as work is required. For example, the HVAC work, there's an asbestos component to repair the HVAC. But if we had to do the entire building at one time, it would be, this is a partial abatement, it's $650,000 just for a portion of the building.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience wish to comment or question?
Chris Kellogg from Walnut Street. I got to echo what Sammy said. The council meeting, the last meeting, actually the special meeting for the Civic Center project was in part a bit of a rout because we could not hear. It was just not a and I don't even know if you can hear me back there. I mean, I could barely hear Sammy, I guess now.
Well, now we can.
Somebody told me once, you use the mic like a toothbrush. So maybe we got a problem here. This audio system is just not good. I mean, I couldn't hear a lot of what you just said, Ray. So I do want to thank the council and the mayor and Ray Cody's office for the tremendous amount of work they did on the affordable housing issue over the last few months. I mean, it's obvious that an awful lot of stuff was considered and vetted. Maps were drawn. I think it's all a wonderful sort of preamble to the next steps as we move forward. It sounds like Bob Connolly is actually saying we need a strategic plan and that we can't rush to a strategic plan, if I heard the drift right. So it is a shame that it came to that and we were rushing a little too quickly. When he mentions that we're forming a group of folks from planning and other and council in town and others, he says, I don't know who those others are, but from the meeting we had here the night of the discussion with the town, there's an awful lot of very intelligent, talented people out there who know a lot about construction, architecture, planning, affordable housing. And in my conversations around the town since this came out, for many of us that had no clue what was happening, there's no sense that really it was integrated into the community. It was kept within the sort of core of committees and council groups. I just think it has to get out. And I don't know what those others are that Bob mentioned, but I think we need quite a few more residents engaged in the debate to try to make this into a much more borough-wide kind of process of evaluating where we are. The other thing I just want to mention briefly is the Pocket Park. It sounded like that was going to happen. I think the borough needs to absolutely reserve that piece of property. I mean, to let that go to a number of units now would seem ludicrous. Number one, it would crowd the street even more, which some of us have already objected to. Secondly, it would make the development of the Civic Center property perhaps a little less likely, because I don't think the Civic Center property is going away as a potential site for affordable housing. I think it may accommodate less. It may be another combination of things, but we can't keep sort of selling off and giving up little pieces of property around the borough without that release of property or change of ownership being understood in the larger context of a strategic plan. And in some cases, it doesn't seem like that was really understood. We gave away too much. So, we need that plan, and we need the pocket park, I think, to be established so we own that piece and we have a little more flexibility in that particular part of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Michelle Polero, 57 Maple Avenue. My question regarding this rescindment of this project is, what has changed in the external environment other than that there was a lot of outcry from the community that the need is still there in our community? And so I'm trying to understand what is really occurring externally that is forcing the council to rescind this project.
Well, I've instructed the council not to comment on this.
Okay.
And it's because we are going to be filing, as you heard from the mayor in the statement, the New Jersey Supreme Court gave towns, municipalities until July the 8th to file an action. And unfortunately, I think what you're seeing, not just here in Madison, literally across the state, is for many, many years there was this stalemate with the Council on Affordable Housing. There was no third round substantive certification. The Supreme Court ruled that COA is not going to be handling it anymore. It's now going to be handled through the courts. Okay. So there is a lot, and the time frame is very, very tight. So I think what you see is not only Madison, but a lot of towns looking, how can we best meet our affordable housing obligation, which is going to be mandated by courts, while protecting the town and in trying to uphold, as we've known, because the third round certification, if COA had existed, we would have had 88 units.
Okay.
If COA doesn't exist and there's litigation, there's predictions it could be 1,000 units.
Right.
So I don't want the council to be in a position where they're commenting on that.
Okay.
But I think what you're looking at is folks trying to meet their legal obligations without overburdening the town.
Right, but it sounds like from the mayor's comments that there is a commitment in the town for affordable housing.
Oh, there's absolutely a commitment. I think from the mayor's comments and what you can see is there's a long history here. I mean, Madison is one of 3 towns in the entire county that has a housing authority. Mm-hmm. You just go down, there's affordable housing pockets all over the town, which bodes very well for this town. There's a lot of towns that haven't met their obligations. You guys are over your obligation for the second round, over it. That's a good thing. So there's still that commitment, and the commitment is something that is a commitment that's not only a moral commitment that the people of Madison have taken on since back in the 70s, before that, but it's now also a legal commitment the New Jersey Supreme Court and the courts are going to be imposing on towns. So we don't want to prejudice the town, but we will be taking the mayor and the governing body's lead. We will be filing the action and doing whatever we can do to best protect you, the residents of Madison.
And did I misunderstand, I may have, when you were talking about kind of the history, was that initially the council had approved it and now we're rescinding it? So that, I guess, that piece of the timeline I'm not quite clear on.
Well, the council had initially designated RPM as this developer for that.
Right.
They're going to be rescinding that tonight, and that's resolution 200-215. It'll be it's rescinding the entire civic center and that redevelopment of that site.
But it was originally approved.
Yes.
No.
Conditionally.
Conditional.
It was a conditional approval.
Okay, so you said that there's going to be this committee, and the gentleman before myself mentioned this greater community that'll be involved. I mean, what is the timeline for building those additional units? We don't know, right?
Yeah, right now, no one knows. This is going to be in the courts. This is, let's put an example. The original Mount Laurel lawsuit happened in the early 70s. Okay. We're still dealing with it now in 2015. So we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know the methodology. There's going to be a lot of moving parts here. I think what the commitment is that the governing body, the planning board, the mayor is going to work with all the different stakeholders, the planner, to come up with the best course of action for the Borough of Madison to meet its obligation and satisfy whatever the requirements are by the legal system.
Okay. Well, thank you for the explanation. I would love to have, community involvement. So as the project unfolds or our plans for affordable housing as a community unfold, I'd love there to be a kind of greater participation because I think it's important to a lot of residents, at least speaking for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, come forward.
Frederick Ziegler, 181 Ridgedale Avenue.
Could you speak a little louder? Sorry.
Oh, thought I was speaking right into it, but I guess not.
Brushing your teeth.
181. We're seeking now a declaratory judgment on July 8th. Is that different from our original plan?
The court, the New Jersey Supreme Court, gave a deadline of July 8th to file. We've been instructed to file. Legal counsel for the Borough of Madison will be filing the declaratory judgment in accordance with the New Jersey Supreme Court's decision.
And does that differ from our original strategy when we were going to go in?
I can't discuss strategy with you. That would be a violation of the attorney-client privilege.
If the town basically plays dead and rolls over, and you're subject to builder's remedy with 20% set-asides, does that mean we're looking at 5,000 units built in town to get to 1,000 affordable housing?
Well, sir, I can't predict what's going to happen. What I can tell you is that had the third round, had COA existed and our third round substantive certification been granted, it would have been at 88 additional units. We had credits because we were over on the second round, and we would have had credits, so it would have been 88 units. Unfortunately, right now COA doesn't exist in terms of establishing our third round substantive certification. That's going to be left up to the courts. And if I could predict what was going to be happening, I would go down to the stock market right now. So what we can tell you is we're going to be vigilant in looking out for the Borough of Madison, its residents, and making sure that we're maintaining what our legal obligation is for fair share housing and affordable housing, while still be cognizant of the impact on the town, its infrastructure, its schools, etc.
Thank you.
Did you write your name and address, please? Thank you. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Please come forward.
Lisa Sapio, Ridgedale Avenue, 69 Ridgedale Avenue. Just really quickly, I just want to double check. We're rescinding this. You're taking this off, this project over on Walnut Street. Is that something that can come back? When you guys start to figure this out again and figure out where these 80 units or 1,000 units are going, is that something that can happen moving forward?
I can't predict for you. This is being rescinded tonight, and there'll be a discussion with the whole community as a whole as to what's going to happen.
The community as a whole, not just the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
But understand, the one thing that we can't predict is we can't predict what builders will do if there is litigation. The reason that we're filing the declaratory judgment is to give us the time and some breathing room. But we can't predict ultimately what builders are going to do or developers.
Also, you're not going to be offering out ideas, moving forward. Oh, we were thinking of the Walnut Street project or the library or whatever. Is that something?
I mean, I'm not going to get into the details of it. This is being rescinded. It's being rescinded publicly. They heard the folks' comments last Monday. It's being rescinded, and we're going to look at it as a totality. But understand that just because we're rescinding this doesn't mean that we're not going to have an affordable housing obligation imposed on us by the New Jersey Superior Court through this litigation.
Okay, so this could be something that could come.
It could be anywhere. I can't predict that.
The other thing is, really quickly, we have this RPM or whoever was the person that was coming in and building these units. Why do we not have our housing department being a little bit more involved in this? Like, I'm a little concerned about somebody coming in and managing 80, 1,000, whatever units are going to be there. They're coming in, they're going to be running it, they're going to be making choices as to who's coming in, who's not. I would think that the housing department should have some sort of, I don't even know who's in charge of housing here, but should they not be here?
Well, the housing authority is a separate entity that is in charge of the public housing authority units that it owns. And I'm not an expert on housing authorities, but the reality is that things cost money to build, and housing authorities, dealing with financing, et cetera. And that's what happens with builders. If builders come in and file a builder remedy lawsuit, they're going to be funding.
But this RPM, or whoever this guy that was coming in to build and oversee this project, he said at the last week's meeting that he was going to have somebody from his company living there and overseeing the project and overseeing the tenants and whoever was going to be in there. I had a little bit of a concern of having some outside person or entity coming into our town and running I don't know what it's going to turn into. Maybe this group is a wonderful group now, but who's to say they're going to be in business in 20 years? Who's going to buy them? Who's going to be running it? Who's going to be making the laws of,
Well, we have ordinances that protect housing. We do have building codes. We have inspectors. We have a whole host of people. We have the health department that goes in to make sure people are living in sanitary conditions. But it's no different. You have garden apartments in this town that have been here for decades, and they have a super, and they're run by a private entity. So that happens in many, many towns where it's not one entity. New York City has thousands of buildings with different people.
I think my concern is just so many units all in one location. I think that's what this town needs to. I've lived here my whole life. I'm 50 years old. I've lived here. I've lived on the same street, different house, but I take a lot of pride in this town, and this town is not what it used to be. And I know that things change and things grow, but I think a few people that I've spoken to today moved into this town because of the values that Madison has or had. And I think now things have changed. This is maybe should be at a different meeting, but the zoning and knocking houses down and building multiple apartments and condos and maybe that's the way it's going, but that's not the town I want to live in. And it's unfortunate because this is a town that I really, I have a lot of pride in this town. I just don't. The faith is not there anymore, and I feel really bad even saying that because I just feel a lot of stuff is happening that we as a town are not aware of, and we get a little note in the mail revamping the civic center. That's not what that was. The letter that I got did not say we're going to be taking this and turning it into affordable housing. And if we didn't, if somebody didn't know about this, we wouldn't have been at the meeting. And maybe this uproar, if somebody didn't put a petition out, none of us would have been here. And that's the unfortunate thing. It's just a little sneaky. I hate to use that word, but that's how I feel.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, any comments or yes, thank you.
Larry Wickman, Walnut Street.
Can't satisfy everyone.
Just to go off what the last neighbor said here, and it was a concern of mine as well, the redevelopment of the Civic Center was the title of the flyer we all got. And just speaking to neighbors on the street, suddenly those of us who found out a little bit more started spreading the word. There was very little information going out to the town, and it seems a little shady, I'll say it, that the title of this newsletter was redevelopment of the Civic Center and not a word of affordable housing. So if the mayor's thinking that this is going too fast, it is to a point, but it's also, we're not getting the full story right out of the gate from the notices we get in the mail. A lot of neighbors showed up just because we were saying and talking to them on that weekend, and we were shocked to see the number of people here just from the word of mouth that spread about the disaster that was being pitched on us. So that's one concern. The proposal itself seemed a little disingenuous with some of the facts they were telling us about the traffic study they did on the street. So to break in an agreement with them would seem totally correct from this board, because beyond a traffic study, we also need a pedestrian study. There is so much pedestrian traffic on that street, and adding any more houses on this street that's already overcrowded is going to be a problem, whether it's 80, 40, or even 24 units or 14 units. We're going to have a problem on that street. The traffic just isn't from the people that move in, it's from our neighbors. We all live on this street. We have parties. We have people parking in the street. None of this is being factored. It all focused on the school, which is also, the street isn't just about the school. It's a main artery to the school, and it's a main cut-through for the town. but it's a place where we live. It is a neighborhood, first and foremost. Cook Avenue used to be in the line in the sand for how far the business was going to encroach upon us in the neighborhood. Cook Avenue is becoming more and more business-minded, and the number of houses that are being slapped up there towards the end, towards Ridgedale, is disconcerting, as is the closeness of their the buildings to the street. So Walnut Street is inadvertently becoming a line in the sand for how long are we going to keep our neighborhoods and not encroach with massive buildings coming in. So two things, if the board can answer, is there going to be a realistic traffic study on Walnut Street, specifically for the benefit of the school, is what we would need, but also a pedestrian study as well. How many people walk down this street daily during school, when school is in session? It's a disaster waiting to happen, and adding any more congestion to the street or houses to the street is going to be an issue. The mayor, in his letter to us tonight, noted that one of the concerns was that the neighbors felt this was all too fast. It wasn't just too fast. We didn't have a lot of time to react to it. It was also too much. To put 80 people, 80 families on an acre of land, and the only place the kids can play that move in here is the parking lot that takes up 80% of the ground that they're living on top of, that's not Madison. It just seemed like, aside from being too fast, it was a bad plan from RPM, and for the board to look at this and think it was a good plan. And lastly, Madison can do better than this. Yes, we can do affordable housing, but when it comes in looking like that, that's a problem. One thing I want to say, on the top of my block, Walnut and Ridgedale Avenue, there was a house there that could have been easily knocked down, totally torn down. It was in distress. Concerned neighbors came in and fixed that house up and made it look like it was part of a historic district. It wasn't just a slap-up job. It was a beautification of a house that could have been trashed. And it is actually a prideful part now to turn onto Madison and see that house up there. I had my big doubts when they started that project, but I'm totally a believer in doing things right. So the last thing I want to say is just that Madison can do better. Yes, let's do stuff like this, but let's do it and let's make it look like Madison, not some industrial park or some place where there's just a parking lot, basically with a house on top of it.
Thank you, Mr. Wickman.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Laura Crane. I'm on Ferndale Road. Just a quick question. We hear a lot about the July 8th date and deadline. Is there an estimation as to when the ruling will come down from the courts? When, what is there some time we should be looking for in the news, like when word is going to come out, so to speak?
No, there's no prediction. From experience, I can tell you litigation takes many months, if not years. And here you're going to have multiple parties, multiple towns filing, hundreds of towns. So my guesstimate is this will be several years through the courts. And you have to understand, even once you file a New Jersey Superior Court down in Morristown, from there there's the Appellate Division and then the Supreme Court. So these cases, that's when I started. The original Mount Laurel case was filed in the 70s, and we're still dealing with it today. So I think it would be impossible to predict, but I would say it would be several years before this comes to a conclusion.
Okay. And I just want to say I really appreciated the email that was sent out and the letter that was sent out informing us that we had in fact been recognized and heard, those of us who were at the meeting last week. And it was really a great way to keep us in the loop, so putting that little plug in, that was a great way for those of us that signed in, we can also help spread the word to others as well as what's going on. So thanks.
Good. Thank you very much. All right. We'll now go to discussion item 1, withdrawal of the Civic Center redevelopment project.
And again, guys, as I've said before, I'd prefer that you not comment on it. I've made comments, but we are going to be embarking on litigation, so it'd be better for you guys to refrain from your comments unless you have a specific question you want to ask.
Right. So if there are any questions. Otherwise, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask for a motion now for Resolution 200-2015.
You want me to read the resolution for the record?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so resolution of the Borough of Madison rescinding the conditional designation of RPM Development, LLC, as redeveloper of 28 Walnut Street, Civic Center site, close paren. Whereas on June 8, 2015, the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Madison conditionally designated RPM Development, LLC, through its affiliate, Walnut Development Associates, LLC, collectively RPM, as redeveloper of 28 Walnut Street for construction of a building containing a new civic center space and 40 affordable housing units, the project. And whereas the designation was contingent upon the negotiation and execution of a redevelopment agreement for the project on or prior to June 22, 2015, and whereas subsequent to the conditional designation, Borough and RPM representatives have concluded that it is in the best interest of all parties to withdraw the project from further consideration, now therefore be resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Madison that 1, the conditional designation of RPM Development, LLC, as redeveloper of the property is hereby rescinded and the project is withdrawn from future consideration. 2, the Mayor and Borough Administrator are hereby authorized to take any all other actions needed to effectuate the purposes of this resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Thank you. We'll need a roll call vote.
I just have one quick question.
Yes. I'm sorry, discussion.
We also had a resolution or an ordinance where we designated this particular property an area of, not in redevelopment, I forget the exact terminology. That still stands, even though we're withdrawing the designation for RPM at this point.
But that's an area in need of rehabilitation, correct? And that's still, you're dealing with the Civic Center site itself, which I think we can all agree there needs to be some rehabilitation there.
Any other questions? All right, vote.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. That has been rescinded. Thank you very much. You saw democracy in progress tonight. We will now go to ordinances for hearing. The Borough Clerk, could you read the statement?
Sure. Ordinances scheduled for hearing were introduced by title and passed on the first reading at a regular meeting of the Council held on Monday, May the 27th, 2015. All were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
Thank you. We're going to call up Ordinance 39-2015 for second reading.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating an additional $6,000 from the Municipal Open Space Trust Fund to Ordinance 13, 2015 for professional services for the restoration and renovation to the east wing of the Hartley Dodge Memorial Building.
Thank you. I'm going to open the hearing. If there are no comments, I'm going to close the hearing. We have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion by the council? And a vote.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you. I declare Ordinance 39-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. We're now going to call Ordinance 40-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $200,000 from the Municipal Open Space Trust Fund for Phase 2 site remediation of the Bailey Ellard playing fields.
I'm going to open the hearing for discussion. If there is no discussion, we will close the hearing. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion by the council? A vote?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay. I declare Ordinance 40-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish the notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. We will now call Ordinance 41-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $5,740 from the Fire Department Trust Fund to purchase hydrant flags.
I'm going to open the hearing. Close the hearing. Could we have a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion by the council? Okay, a vote.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I declare Ordinance 41-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. We'll call up Ordinance 42-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Ordinance 2, 2015, appropriating $950,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for road improvements on Ridgedale Avenue to increase the appropriation from $950,000 to $1,050,000.
Okay, we're going to open the hearing. Sam, make sure you say your name and address for the record and write it in. Thank you.
Sam Cerciolo, Park Avenue, Madison. Just a couple questions. Number one is how many projects we doing on road we done this year? How many we doing?
I'll defer to Mr. Cody or Mr. Rowe. Do you have the number?
No, there's two types of projects. There's reconstruction and there's mill and overlay. So you have the numbers. No.
Sam, as Pat just alluded, there's road reconstruction projects and there's also mill and overlay. Mill and overlay, we did 9 roads this year. We're also currently just amended or added to that. We just finished Woodland, and on next Monday, we'll be starting Noe.
I mean, are you, with all these things that you are doing, are you putting them all together in one packet, like I suggested?
Yes, we did. Like your suggestion, we embraced it from previous years, and yes, it was bid out at one bidder, one vendor. Same way with mill and overlay, we used Tilcon, one vendor.
Very
did
good,
all
thank
the
you.
roads.
Also, how many bidders bidded on that Ridgedale Avenue job?
One.
One bidder.
Hold up, I may be corrected here. Do you remember? Was it 4? How many on Ridgedale?
4.
4 on Ridgedale, 1 on Waverly.
4 on Ridgedale and 1 on...
And 1 on Waverly Green parking lot, which is
so
also...
4 bidders bidded on Ridgedale Avenue, you're saying?
Yes.
And they were all over the estimated cost, is that what we're saying?
Yes, yes, they were. We had $950,000 allotted, and they all exceeded the bid threshold.
And the reason for the overrun was something about the historic or something I heard?
No, the bid was structured with an alternate for some of the historic features. What's being proposed tonight is additional funding, which would allow for...
you know what? You don't remember what I told you, being in the business.
Well, you haven't been here in the last couple months.
Well, anyway, the worst time to go out for bids is right now because everybody's busy. So what they do is if they get a recommend like Ridgedale Avenue, they'll all come in with high bids. The best time to bid is November, December. I told you that. Number one. Number two, you're talking $100,000, okay? And all 4 bidders were over the $100,000. Is that what you're saying, right? Now, what I suggest, just like the water department did, I suggest we cancel the bids and go out for new bids. And I guarantee you that $100,000, we wouldn't have to spend it.
The problem is that we have residents from Ridgedale. We have 2 school districts affected. The road's been torn up. The people have been very patient. I don't think you'd get a consensus from the Ridgedale residents here tonight to wait and to rebid this process. We're inclined. And the reason for the delay, there were 2 grants from the state of New Jersey. The project was going to be done in 2 phases. The second phase could not even be designed until the Commissioner of Transportation signed the grant agreement, which was just done recently. And until he signed it, the plans and specs couldn't be approved to be released for bid by the local office in Mount Arlington of DOT. So that was the reason for the delay, but it saved $160,000 of grant funds instead of Madison taxpayer funds, and that was the reason for the delay. That and the fact that Public Service came in front of us and said they were going to replace the gas mains. We asked them to accelerate their work because we didn't want to pave, and then have them come in behind us and tear up what we had just paved and reconstructed. And they're still out there working. So that's the other reason for the delay. They're not going to be done until the end of this week.
Well, you're like my son. You got an answer for everything. But,
okay. Sam, the clock is ticking.
Okay. Also, what I suggest strongly, again, all right, so we lost this one, and I understand Ridgedale is bad. I don't even go down it. But in the future, if you're going to do something like next year, you got to do 2 roads, 3 roads. You got to have it all ready in September, October. You got to have it all for the bids in the beginning of the winter, so these contractors line up work. But to go out for bids now that's why it's costing us so much money. So let's do it the right way.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Could we have a motion to move the ordinance?
I move ordinance 42-2015.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any council discussion? We'll have a vote.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you. I declare ordinance 42-2015 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. We now will have invitation for discussion part 2, where you may discuss any topic relating to the borough. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to talk? Mr. Cerciello.
Thank you, ma'am.
Limited to 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is 3 minutes now.
I got you.
Thank you.
I put a letter on the clerk's thing over there. I would like this letter that I'm going to talk about to be given to all the council and mayor in the engineer department. The letter is dated November 1st, 2011. The letter talks about South Street, when they, which they just redid about several years ago, not even maybe. In front of a resident's house on 12 South Street, there's a bad problem with the water coming through the road. And this person talked to the engineers, talked to everybody, and nothing's being done in the 4 years. And I don't understand why. I mean, it's very dangerous. Every time it rains, water comes right through the road. And all they're doing is they're putting a little blacktop. When the hole gets big, the hole is about almost 4 feet in diameter. I don't understand why this is not dealt with.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. There's ice every winter, and it's very dangerous. And you'll see in the letter exactly what the resident said. So, like I said, it's been over 4 years, and I think we should deal with it.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, we'll read the letter, and then we're going to check it out. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, we're going to get copies of it. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. So we are now going to have... one more. I'm sorry, Donald.
Don Brunner, 20 Redmond Drive. On the library increasing the amount to $649,000, I know this has been worked out for a couple of years, but is there any reason you came up with the number $649,000? I see the library director's here tonight. A couple of years ago, it was around $450,000 for the air conditioning system.
To increase that amount because none of the bids came in at $450. They were way higher. So we went back to the drawing boards, and we now have a contractor who will be able to do the work.
And it'll be done this summer?
Yes.
Fall. The fall.
Yeah, the fall, when the kids go back to school. Okay, yes, John?
John Solu from Ridgedale Avenue in Madison. Just wanted to, again, bring to your attention the Friends of the Bottle Hill packets that you received, I think, 3 years or 4 years ago. There was a lot of concerns raised by the neighbors, and I'm happy to hear we're going to have a resolution to finally pave that road that we've been patiently waiting for many, many years. So I'm happy to spend any money we need to finish that blip road. I'm just pleased as pie that you're moving on it. But part of the request that came from the residents when the study was done and a research from all the neighbors was to lower the speed limit. And I'd like to draw your attention to that as part of what I've heard is that as soon as you pave that road and make it as smooth as possible, what's going to happen is the speeders will start accelerating. So to that end, I want to, again, see if we could make provisions within our municipal budget for enforcement. The speed limit is currently 30. We'd like to have it lowered to 25. And then no matter what you change it to, we need enforcement. So I think in our municipal budget, we need to make sure over the next few years that as the road is paved and the speed starts increasing again, thank God it slowed down. We have been so grateful for all the potholes you've been able to put in there. It's changed the culture on the road, but we need to just keep it that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Just for the record, it is a county road. We had talked...
Not that part of the
Oh, not that portion. But what we had talked about before was, if you recall, a couple of years ago, in terms of changing speed limits, there's a whole process, very complicated, and that's why we had your traffic officer sergeant come out and talk about enforcement.
Just to remind you, that is not a county road. The county road ends at the corner of Ridgedale and Central. Central is the county road. And we even, part of our group corrected that information on Google Maps. So we've had a group offline working, and we've corrected that issue. So Google Maps no longer shows that as a county road, and it is routed through Central, which is our county road, maintained by the county, not by the borough owns Ridgedale, so we have jurisdiction over speed limits and all activities that happen on that section of the road. Thank you.
Make sure, I mean, our police department already knows this is going to be an issue, but we will reinforce it. Thank you. Yes.
And the other thing, John, is as part of the alternates in the bid that's being, the extra funding is for 2 speed radar signs that will be located on Ridgedale. So those are similar to the ones that are on Rosedale Avenue with the blinking, flags you a couple hundred feet ahead, so you hopefully it targets you to slow down, and then we'll enforce that with the police.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Fran Clinton.
Pardon me?
I'm Fran Clinton.
Okay, thank
and
you,
I
Fran.
live at 59 Ridgedale. And I just wanted to add to what John was saying in terms of the enforcement of the traffic on Ridgedale. In addition to the cars, I know that on Ridgedale, trucks are not allowed on Ridgedale Avenue. But even in the early mornings, that's still happening. And unfortunately, I mean, there's been many mornings that I've been woken up by the sound of a truck, like speeding down Ridgedale Avenue. And it also, there's so many historical homes on that block that, we need to preserve them and to help in terms of the maintenance of these homes. So, this type of traffic could possibly compromise these homes. So it's really important that, not in addition to the speed limit, but also the trucks being, kept off these roads. So
I'm not, I'll ask Mr. Cody are trucks not permitted on Ridgedale?
They're not permitted on Ridgedale except for local deliveries. So if it's a truck that's not going to the high school or local business, our ordinance does not allow them on there. They're supposed to use a county road which can handle 4 tons or higher weight vehicles.
But these deliveries are happening like at 4 in the morning.
Yep.
And so I doubt it that anyone's getting, their lawn, cut at 4 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Right.
really occurring quite early when there's really nobody on the road, but, you can still kind of hear and,
Yeah,
It's-
understood.
yeah,
That's very early alarm clock. Okay, anybody else? Thank you. We will now have introduction of ordinance. Would the Borough Clerk please read the statement?
Ordinance is scheduled for first reading, have a hearing date set for July 13th, 2015. All will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
So I'm calling up ordinance 43-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Ordinance 52, 2014, appropriating $200,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the Waverly Green Parking Lot Improvements Project to increase the appropriation from $200,000 to $250,000.
Thank you. Could we have a motion?
I move ordinance 43-2015.
Second?
I second that.
Thank you. Any council discussion? Could we have a vote?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Right, thank you. Ordinance 44-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $32,000 from the Fire Department Trust Fund to purchase notebooks and tablets.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move ordinance 44-2015.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Could we have a vote?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 45-2015.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $7,942.79 from the Fire Department Trust Fund to repair Tower 1.
Do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I move ordinance 45-2015.
I'll
Thank
second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Could we have a vote?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go on to consent agenda resolutions.
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Do I have a motion?
I move the consent agenda, Resolution 177, 2015, to Resolution 199-2015, and Resolution 201, 2015, and Resolution 202, 2015.
A second?
And also had a
There's a-
203
Yeah, there's a-
that was
Yeah,
203.
I'm sorry, I thought she
Sorry.
said 203.
regarding signs.
Okay.
Move that one, too.
Okay, I'll second it.
Second, thank you. Could we have any discussion on any of the resolutions? Could we have a vote?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any unfinished business? We'll go to approval of the vouchers.
Okay. Public safety, $21,149.18. Health and public assistance, $669.10. Public works and engineering, $131,778.98. Community affairs, $10,929.35. Finance and borough clerk, $580,051.67. Utilities, $772,829.45. Total is $1,517,407.73.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the vouchers?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay. Could we have a vote?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, we move on to new business. Is there any new business? Then we will have an adjournment. Do we have a
Madam
motion?
President, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much for coming.
Good job. I'm going to tell the mayor to stay an extra week.
Good job. Give you the job.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. I just
Who
wanna
needs
let you know,
Bob?
I was-
I'll tell him that.
I knew that.
That's why I wasn't like being in-
Would I love to cut it off? But I-
You didn't raise it.
No response, so I had to